So when we think about listening, we often just think, yeah, it's listening. Or maybe we say, yeah, I'm listening. And we give very little thought to the process of listening or how or if we really are listening. I started thinking more about this when I watched a young mother with a child following her through the store. Each and every one of her replies to the incessant little chatter was, I'm listening, I gotcha. Was she really listening? Well, she was, but it's more a matter of where on the scale she was listening. There are 5 levels. So the 5 levels of listening indicate the level of true communication between speaker and listener. It's that simple. Stephen Covey examines this process of listening and effective communication in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And although that may seem like a little bit older title, it is phenomenal and still relevant today. Ignoring. This is the lowest level of listening. No effort is being given by the listener. There are many reasons why listening occurs at this level. Maybe distraction. The listener is just busy. I mean, how many times have you been busy doing something like you're washing dishes or you're working and then suddenly you've realized another person's been talking to you? Or you were talking to someone only to realize they didn't even realize you were there. One thing you can do is try calling the individual by name to get their attention. That helps in distraction. Intentional ignoring. This happens, doesn't it? Maybe you fought with someone and they're simply not going to acknowledge you, or the listener doesn't want to acknowledge the information. Physical restrictions. There could be a hearing problem, or maybe the listener has earphones in. This happens often with my teenagers. There are many reasons why the ignoring will occur. Pretending listening. This level is where the listener is giving an appearance of listening, but not really engaged. This level of listening is more like an example at the beginning of this article with the mother and the child. My favorite example, however, happened a few years ago. One of her teenage daughters called my husband, and she started rambling to her father about the details of a TV show she had just watched with a friend. She spoke loud enough that I could hear her comments, and I smiled at her enthusiasm. However, soon I heard my husband's response change from being engaged to clearly disengaged. He was pretend listening. What was his response? Really? Good, For several minutes, he repeated these 3 statements. Pretend listening. He was completely disengaged because the information didn't have any value to him. Selective listening. This is when we pay attention to people as long as we agree with them or we want to hear what they have to say. So this is a little bit different than pretend listening because the listener is really paying attention enough to be able to re-engage in the conversation as soon as the topic is interesting to them or it matters. So at this level, the listener will be quick to jump in and out. They may interrupt the speaker to add something. They might change the topic or simply finish another person's sentence. The dangerous part of the selective listening level is that it's easy to fall into ignoring or pretend listening levels. My mother often jokes that my father has selective listening. She could talk to him about something important to her. For example, maybe she's talking about quilting or running an errand, and he won't even acknowledge her. But when the topic is changed to something like going out to eat or making fudge, she immediately has his attention. Attentive listening. This is usually the level that we spend most of our time in. This is more of our day-to-day life. We are listening and we're evaluating the information. We determine if we agree or disagree with the information. But the point is that the listener is assessing the knowledge and how it applies to get them. Again, there's a word of caution at this level. If the listener determines that the information is not as important, they may fall out of attentive listening and into one of the lower levels. Active or empathetic listening. This is the pinnacle, the very best of the best when it comes to listening. It also takes the most energy. The application of listening with intention is the foundation of empathetic listening. The listener is paying attention to the words, what it means to them, and most importantly, what it means to the speaker. The listener gives 100% of their attention, completely focused. This is where the old adage comes to play, walking in another's shoes. The listener gives their whole self to the conversation, ears, heart, and mind. This is the hardest level of listening to achieve because it does require so much energy from the listener. The levels of listening can motivate someone to be a better learner and a better listener. So how does that happen? Well, as you go throughout your day, look carefully at your conversations and see where you fall on this scale. I did this yesterday. After a long meeting at work, a 90-minute corporate meeting, I sat back and I pondered, what was my level of listening? I quickly realized the only level I had not exhibited during that 90-minute meeting was level 1, ignoring. And I think that's very natural. But my goal should be to live at that higher level of listening and demonstrating to those around us that they are important and what they have to say is important.